We have MS Now international reporter Inez de la Cuetara in Jerusalem this morning. Also with us, MS Now political analyst and staff writer at The Atlantic, Ashley Parker, and our national security and intelligence analyst, former CIA officer, Mark Polymeropoulos. Inez, the Trump administration still hedging on a timeline for this war, but the Pentagon was very clear just now. Today will be the biggest bombardment of Iran yet. Where do things stand on the Israeli side?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, and huge explosions rocking Tehran overnight as the U.S., you heard it there, saying that today will be the biggest day, the most intense day in Iran. They say they continue to go after deeply buried ballistic missile launchers in Iran. They say the number of ballistic missiles fired by Iran has gone down 90%. The number of drones fired has gone down 83%. That being said, here in Israel, sirens are continuing to go off. We had a siren going off here in Jerusalem just about an hour ago, and the Israeli Health Ministry says that at least 191 people have been admitted to the hospital in the last 24 hours just due to the war. I will say some of that is due, obviously, to the attacks coming in from Iran. Some of it is attacks coming in from the north, and that second front opening up with Hezbollah, of course, being an Iranian-backed militia, the IDF trying to push Hezbollah further back into Lebanon. We're getting some, alarming numbers from the UN that over 700,000 people have been displaced in Lebanon so far as a result of this fighting. At least 294 people killed and at least 1,000 people injured. The IDF also reporting its first casualties. We understand at least 2 IDF soldiers have been killed in the fighting against Hezbollah. We met with the mother of a soldier who was also wounded in the fighting against Hezbollah. This soldier lost both of his legs, but still his mother says she supports this war. I'll let you listen to what she had to say.
For religious people, we are people who believe in sitting and living in Israel. This is our land, and we are going to fight for it without any mercy to anyone. And we send our children into the army knowing that we may pay the highest price. But this is what we are doing. There's no other option.
And her comments really reflective of what we've been hearing here in Israel. There are certainly those in the U.S. questioning this war, but here people we've been talking to, for the most part, tell us they support this war. They want the Israelis and the U.S. to kind of finish what they started. They say they've been living under constant attacks since October 7th, and so they want, the U.S. and Israel to keep going. We did hear from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as well, saying that the offensive is not done yet. And we did get some comments also from the Iranian foreign minister, telling PBS that they're going to keep firing missiles for as long as necessary. He says that talks with the U.S. are no longer on the agenda because they've had a very bitter experience, he says, in their talks with the U.S. Twice now they have been attacked while they were trying to negotiate with the U.S.
Inez de la Cuetara with that reporting for us from Israel. Thank you. Mark, this morning, Secretary Hegseth argued this war is not broadening. Watch.
I see in the media banners that say, war expanding or war spread. It's actually the opposite. It's actually quite contained, and more of those countries are coming on side.
More countries involved, more strikes than ever. That is not expanding?
Well, it's certainly, if you're living in Dubai or in Bahrain and in Kuwait and the UAE, it certainly is expanding. And, that press conference this morning, it's really interesting. It seemingly always is the case where you have the Secretary of Defense Hegseth, using a lot of this kind of JV football rah-rah talk. And then the juxtaposition is Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Kane, who's very sober and kind of gives a much more realistic picture. And I think what you have here is that, the U.S. is in a bit of a pickle now. We have tactical military brilliance. No one's doubting the capability of the U.S. military. But then there's strategic incoherence. And so we are kind of stuck at a time in which, and war is messy. And so we have a hardline Iranian regime, a supreme leader who's actually much more, tougher than his father, his predecessor. And things don't seem to be, ending in a timeline that the president wants. Now, that's just the way conflict goes. And so, we're at this point now, if Trump decides to kind of call it a day, call it quits, I'm not sure the U.S. is in a better position, nor actually our allies in the region with a more hardline supreme leader, an angry Iran lashing out at its neighbors, and probably an Iran that's going to rush to a nuclear weapon. On top of it, we abandon the protesters. So we're in a pickle now. Let's see what happens in the days and weeks ahead.
And as Inez just reported, no more negotiations either. No reason for Iran to go back to any kind of negotiating table over its nuclear program. Ashley, meantime, Americans are getting pinched at the pump. And here's what President Trump said about concerns over this war's impact on oil prices.
This was an excursion that a lot of people wouldn't have done. I knew oil prices would go up if I did this, and they've gone up probably less than I thought they'd go up. But I don't think anybody thought we were going to be this quickly successful.
Ashley, seems like the goal there was calming markets, but is the president underestimating the situation and the impact on Americans already worried about the cost of living?
Well, if you look at this war in political terms, from the very beginning, his political operation was incredibly concerned that going to war with Iran would hurt them politically in the midterms, not just because of voter sentiment against this specific war, this specific type of military adventurism, but exactly what the president was just addressing there about what it would do to costs back home, including most notably oil prices. And that has long been the issue that both sides have understood the midterms are going to be decided over, sort of cost of living expenses. This is something President Biden learned quite acutely in the presidential race. And I can remember talking to one of Biden's advisors who told me, look, we have all these economic indicators that are genuinely good, which Trump doesn't even have all of those indicators. But they said, every single gas station that lists the price is a billboard reminding voters of what they don't like, of how they're struggling at home. And that is one side effect of this current war.
Yeah, gas prices went up another 5 cents overnight, up about 60 cents from a month ago. Mark, Trump and Hegseth both have argued that Iran's retaliation across the region has moved Gulf nations closer to the U.S. position. We just heard Hegseth say this morning, Iran stands alone. Just how isolated is Iran now compared to 2 weeks ago? Do they have any allies left?
Well, they certainly have an ally in Russia. And reports are, of course, that the Russians were providing intelligence to Iran for strikes on U.S. targets, which is something that the administration doesn't seem to care all that much about. I think we should. But there's no doubt that the Gulf states, who actually were not necessarily in favor of this, they certainly wanted stability and they thought Iran could be contained. But with the attacks in the region on their people, there's been many deaths amongst the population in the Gulf states. That there is certainly a tilt towards kind of the U.S. position, and the Iranians, their calculation was that the economic pain that they could inflict, as well as the deaths in the region, would cause the Gulf states perhaps to be shaky on this. They have not. And so in some ways, the administration is correct in that, the Gulf Arab states certainly are on our side now. Now, the big question, of course, is how long can that economic pain continue? That's what the Iranians are counting on. If they close the Straits of Hormuz, the disruption in energy markets is really a big deal for many in the region. But right now, you do have this, a tightened alliance between, the Saudis and the Emiratis, the Kuwaitis, the Bahrainis, and the U.S. And I think Iran did miscalculate on this, although I think they did so certainly knowing that in the end there would be economic pain in the region. You're seeing that happen.
Ashley, President Trump apparently had a friendly chat with Vladimir Putin this week. He said that any action the U.S. takes to secure the Strait of Hormuz should be seen as a gift to China. Is the president trying to cozy up to Russia and China in this moment?
Well, let's just take Russia and China separately. With Russia, President Trump has almost always tried to cozy up with Vladimir Putin and Russia. And one of the things that was interesting, a parallel that people made from a point of frustration, was that when the United States made the decision to invade Iran, there were, they basically said it was clear that Iran was not serious about negotiating. And so we gave this a couple of weeks of talks, and then we decided to strike. And of course, the parallel there are the discussions that have been going on with Russia and President Putin since President Trump took office, promising on day one that he would end the war with Russia and Ukraine. Russia has behaved in many ways the exact same way as Iran, refusing to give in to the United States demands, moving the goalposts, looking for more time. And the United States has not behaved in the same way towards Russia as we did towards Iran. So, China is a different story. But when it comes to Russia, Trump's instinct, even though he occasionally will punish them with sanctions and get frustrated, is yes, to try to be incredibly cozy. And he likes Putin personally.
Ashley Parker and Mark Polymeropoulos, thank you both.